A very warm welcome and thank you for coming to this webinar at lunchtime. So I know it's not easy, given that everyone has a hectic schedule. So thank you very much. Sincerely appreciate it. I also like to thank our friends at NVPC for partnering with us in this particular seminar. And before that, maybe Anil, you want to say something? Or I'll just go ahead.
No, I just want to say that I think we're very happy to be able to work on this with yourself, Adam, and the team at ISS. Lots to do, lots planned out. But yeah, as long as we can kick it off and continue to build better stuff along the way, happy to work together.
Right, thank you. Yeah, so big thank you to NVPC. And as I just going to slowly introduce myself and what have you while waiting for more participants before we go into the topic proper. So again, my name is Adam, and I'd like to just briefly talk about NUS-ISS. So we are an institute within the National University of Singapore, and our core competency as an institute is actually digital transformation. So we have done a lot of projects, work with governments, not just Singapore government, various institutions, etc. And we also do work in the social sector. So today, we're going to be focusing on digital transformation for the social sector specifically. So some of the contents actually specially curated for this particular industry, if you will. Of course, if we have friends who are from other industry, there will be points which is relevant, but bear in mind while you're going through this, there are nuances and cultural differences, industrial differences specific to the social sector, and we're going to cover a little bit more on that today. So without further ado, let me share my slides. There. So as mentioned, my name is Adam, and you'll be spending the next hour with me. So I'm going to start off by articulating or stating the obvious. So Singapore, as you know, we are embarking into the Smart Nation initiative. But what it is exactly sometimes can be not as clear. I won't say confusing, because once you get to know the overall general direction that the country is moving towards, it becomes apparent. But sometimes it can be a little bit not obvious to those who are first approaching this subject. So I lifted this from the Smart Nation website directly, and I've taken a little quote. I'm not going to read them to you because you can see them on the screen. But what I'd like to emphasize would be this. There is a strong push, and I emphasize that there's a strong push from the government of Singapore for all sectors, people within the country to adapt and use technology to harvest the benefits of digitalization. As we move towards the Smart Nation initiative, we're going to move progressively as a nation. This includes the social sector as well. Now, the thing is, in reality, a lot of times we are caught by, if I will read this quote, the tyranny of the urgent and neglect what is important. This is a very common phenomenon, regardless of what industry you're in. As long as a human being, we have our own inherent limitations. And if you go into human psychology, the most common subject that is within this scope will be system 1 and 2 thinking, automatic and deep thoughts. So most of the time we are caught in this. We're trying to use a local term, do firefighting every day for operational stuff, etc., etc. You don't really take the time to take a step back and think and plan, which we think we would be. But in reality, we're always having some emergencies to resolve. So while there's this grand scheme of things, this direction that we have to move towards the Smart Nation initiative, and we know we have to do that. It's coming. It's most probably here for some industry already. we're always thinking that there's always a tomorrow for me to fix this. And that is the reality of thing. So with the Smart Nation initiative, there is a wish, and I emphasize a wish, to leverage technology. So ideally, with respect to the social sector, in a wish to adopt technology, ideally we'll adopt it to be more efficient and effective. That's the ideal state. And this could be something as simple as reducing duplication of data entry, more effective processing of donations, your funding management, improve accuracy of reporting. Now, unfortunately, while this sounds very simple, it is a real challenge. I've come to realize when I do projects with many of the social sector, not because they do not spend enough time to look into these areas, but because they are many times short-handed, lack of resources, and firefighting at that point in time. And they'll be thinking there's always a tomorrow that I'm gonna fix this. So they know they have to do it, but they're not doing it. And again, very common human behavior. So if you go and ask anyone who is now currently smoking or not exercising, you ask them, you know, you really should stop smoking, you should start exercising. I guarantee you everybody knows that, but you'll be thinking that, you know, there's always a tomorrow. You know, I'm going to fix what's in front of me right now, temptation, urgency, etc. So very normal human psychology. And we have to acknowledge that when we try to look at ways to implement technology. We cannot start with the false assumption that people will, you know, go into long-term thinking and then do the right thing from day one. It's just not possible. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of projects fail. We will talk a little bit more about that later. So ideally, we want to be more efficient and effective. Could be simple stuff like operational processes, or in our social sector case, it could be to increase ability to reach targeted communities, the beneficiaries who are trying to extend our social impact, and attract more volunteers and getting them involved. So there's also the money aspects. You know, someone has to you know, help contribute financially, but many times it's not just the financial aspects. You actually need volunteers, and volunteers who are constantly engaged. That can be a challenge in our day-to-day lives where we have various other commitments. So ideally, you want to use technology to look into that area as well. So why are we trying to do this? So that more resources can go towards the intended beneficiaries, as opposed to, you know, keeping the lights on, business as usual, so that the social sector, various organizations under the social sector can leverage their resources for service impact and intended outcomes. So this is what we want. This is the ideal state. Of course, to ensure that work is sustainable. You'll be surprised a lot of times the things we do, they're not sustainable in the long run. Again, because we are fighting something that's urgent in front of us, and we do not stop to think further down the road for proper planning or sustainable planning. So I have lifted this off the internet when I talk about leveraging technology in the social sector. And I think it's very strict, it's very relevant to the context, and it strikes similar tones when I personally try to work with this sector. And I'm just going to highlight some of the key stuff that is recurring in my own personal experiences, as well as those of my colleagues. So number one, there is a lack of scalable industrial solutions. Most industrial solutions, be it software or what have you, they're not built for the social sector. They don't take the nuances into consideration. So that's number one, a big challenge. And because this is a small market, if you will, you don't enjoy the economy of scale. You don't enjoy the benefits that comes along with, you know, a larger lobbying, etc. But there's a real need, a very real need. There's also an issue with technology talent within the organization. Of course, financial pressure, very common issues within organizations, within the social sector, and of course, affordable technology services. More importantly, there are trends where donors wants to have more transparency on what you're doing with the money that they're donating. Are you actually spending the money for the intended purpose, which is towards the social impact for your beneficiaries? or you're just really keeping the organization alive, struggling, business as usual. So that plays a very important role, key factor as well, because these days there are many charitable causes, social causes, fighting for attention, fighting for resources. So the question is, how do you then try to resolve them using technology? So as mentioned early on from that quote, we have synthesized a few common challenges, and I'd like to elaborate and expound on them a little more before we look at the potential methodologies towards fixing them. So definitely digital literacy levels across the organization, in-house tech capabilities, manpower, there's always not enough manpower, and the age-old issue of funding. Now, digital literacy, for those who are not aware, can be something as, are you familiar with using computers? To something as complex as, are you very savvy with social media? How do you manipulate social media for intended purposes? Case in point, digital marketing. So it goes across that stream. But it is very important to ensure that people within the organization have a bare minimum when it comes to digital literacy, because this reflects to culture. And it can help facilitate to, let's go into this digital transformation journey together, as opposed to everybody says, no, I don't need to do this. If it's not broken, why do we need to do that? Or this is not my intended, this is not what I set up to work in the social sector, etc. So digital literacy is important, because once they realize why you're doing it, you get less resistance towards change. And you need that help, because you're already understaffed, under-resourced. You're facing a big uphill challenge when it comes to digital transformation. You need all hands on deck. In-house technical capabilities, the technology talent to innovate and deliver, not just keeping the lights on, not just business as usual. Larger social organizations may have the luxury, but the reality of truth is a lot of organizations in this sector simply do not have the luxury. Manpower, so I classified it under availability, suitability, and turnover. Already, most organizations don't have enough manpower. They're double hatting, doing finance as well as ops, perhaps, or even more, as well as HR, potentially, multiple hats. There's also suitability. So it's not a matter of having enough warm bodies around when you come to digital transformation. It's like fighting an army. You have to have qualified professionals or people who know what they're doing. And this is hard to come by in the sector. So there are, of course, training grants and what have you to help level up. And this webinar is one of them. So suitability is important, as well as turnover, because when you try to do digital transformation initiatives, it is a long exercise. It's not something simple. So you need to actually keep the manpower away, and they'll gain valuable experiences which cannot be taught in the classroom. So how do you actually ensure that you have proper manpower? And of course, funding, the financial investment involved in this initiative. And I've compiled here, this is taken off the internet, so nothing too secretive about it. And this can be shared with the audience after this webinar, some of the grants that's available out there for social sector to take advantage of. Now, here's the thing. Before I ask you guys a question, here's the thing. Of course, we're still in the middle of the COVID pandemic. And one of the interesting side effect, if you will, of this pandemic is that we have accelerated digital transformation, digitization within this period of time. So this article was taken in 2020, June. And it says that, within 5 months of the pandemic, because organizations need to pivot, they have achieved 5 years worth of digital transformation. And this across all sectors, okay, all sectors. Yeah, only 5 months to achieve that. And this is where I would like to ask questions to the audience. Don't worry, you don't have to answer me verbally. You can type it in the chat, okay? Has your organization actually made transformative change or just reacted and flowed along throughout this journey where the organizations are undergoing so-called digitalization and digital transformation? So out of curiosity, if you could just type it in the chat box. Don't be shy. So have one reacted and floated along? Yeah. Okay, nice smiley. Yeah. Strong. Okay, good, good. Prepared to begin with a strong baseline. That's great. Yeah. Anyone else wants to share their sentiments? Reacted, trying to transition. Okay, that's great. That's great initiative. Yeah. Long journey ahead. Indeed, indeed. Yeah. Go and adapt with the change. Okay, so it seems that there are general consensus and sentiments that organizations have started. And of course, some have shared that indeed, instead of actual transformative, it's just reacted and floated along. Now, for the changes that you have made, are they sustainable in your opinion, or are they just band-aids, workarounds that you hope will hold? So the changes you have really made, put in place, taking baby steps. Oh, that's great. Yeah, someone is utilizing the Tech and Go funds. Yeah. Okay. So the second question is the changes that you have made, are they sustainable in your opinion, or are they actually band-aids? They're workarounds that you hope will actually hold. Yeah. Don't be shy. Mostly band-aid. Think about the future. Okay, okay. Some are sustainable or some are pilots. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. And don't be embarrassed about it. It's actually quite normal, even for non-social sector. It's just very normal. Hopefully no band-aids. Yeah, okay, thank you. That's a very good answer. Sometimes we don't know yet, right? Yeah. Learn and adjust as we go. Okay, great, great. And I'm going to ask the next question. For those who have actually undergone such initiative to try to fix stuff, did you actually utilize the grant and resources? I know someone actually mentioned that they have started utilizing NCSS Tech and Go. So for those who have actually went along, yeah. Anyone else present, any organization present here that actually utilize the grants? Yes, also the government grants. Yes, thanks, William. Anyone else? Or did you guys don't know there's a grant? Can't be, right? NCSS actually broadcast this out very aggressively. Yeah, NCSS. Okay, great. So there are some, at least some, for those who are a bit shy. I'll just take it as yes, more saying NCSS Tech and Go. Great. Okay. So here's my point. A lot of organizations out there across the globe have accelerated digitalization within the last few months, and they make drastic improvement. So ideally, it should be the same in the social sector, right? And truth be told, there are some progress, that's for sure. Okay, but in reality, this sector is a lot slower in comparison to some of the other organizations. And the question is always, why is that the case? There are government fundings available, right? So money shouldn't be an issue, right? There are also government fundings for manpower. So manpower shouldn't be an issue, right? So why is social sector not moving as fast as it would like to be? Okay, so this is something that we have to keep in mind. So I'd like to share this slide. This slide is actually not done by me. It's done by some of my students. When I saw it, I was elated. It's a fantastic. You guys have articulated this very well, and I decided to borrow it for today's talk. So in reality, for the grand scheme of things, a lot of times when we make decisions, policies, including grants and what have you, we assume all organizations are similar. They are commercial companies, if we will, right? Except that one has profit as revenue, the other is depending on funding, or social enterprises, actually, they have to source their own income as well. So we assume that there's actually one type of revenue cycle, adoption cycle, etc. So in the commercial product life cycles, usually we have incubate, invest, sustain, and you sunset the technology solution. Okay, and what does this mean? So you actually have a situation where organizations, they will look at what is relevant to them, what is contextually relevant to them, and then they will start building stuff that is relevant to them. They'll use it until they decided that, hey, this is no longer relevant, which is very normal because organization change, grow, external policy change, etc., etc. So many moving factors. So very normal. So when we actually have planning roadmaps, we look at grants, there's this assumption that most organizations will do it this way. The social sector is actually quite different. Number one, they have most of the organizations, not all, most organizations have an issue with finance. So they need to first do fundraising. And then depending on the amount of money you have, then you go on to procure off-the-shelf system, because unfortunately they may not have the technical talent to develop or build. Even if they do have, maintaining that talent to actually keep on enhancing the system can be a challenge due to various reasons the sector have. Pay may be more attractive elsewhere, career development might be more attractive elsewhere. So to do fundraising, already from the starting point, there's a short change. Not like commercial company. I got to figure out where to get money, and it may or may not be enough. That procure whatever is best, suitable with my little pot of money raised, and I try to sustain it. And if I have funding, a lot of times I hear this from people who are not working with the social sector, don't understand the sector well. They say, you guys already got a grant, right? So what's the issue? The grant will actually end. The fact of the matter, no one's going to give you a grant that doesn't end with no expiry date. The grant is going to end. And after that, who's going to pay for that solution? They're not like commercial companies. Either I continue to maintain it, enhance it, sunset, get a new one. Organizations in the social sector, they will continue to use it way beyond their end of life. So this is a very important mindset that is differences that you have to actually take into consideration when you plan your digital transformation roadmap. Or else a lot of the stuff you actually show for other industry, it sounds great on paper, it sounds great in a presentation, but when you actually do implementation, a lot of your techniques would not work. It simply is not relevant. So very important. It is a single one-time fundraiser versus profit-driven, and social sector really focus on cost avoidance and reduction. As mentioned, this really affects how social sector leverages on resources. I actually heard before some of the social service agency, and I says, why do you not take NCSS Tech and Go grant? And it says, Adam, if I would take it, I can do this now. A few years down the road, who's going to pay for that system? It's too expensive. I'd rather not. Okay, so this is very important mindset that we have to take into consideration. Now, of course, there are various opportunities where we talk about technology, digital transformation. It could be process, streamline your processes, integration, etc. Improve the internal and external experiences with data and insights. Simplify work, and then providing a better customer service through human-centered services. And of course, catering for future needs. How do you grow accordingly in this context where you have limitations in terms of resources and lack of tech talent? So there are great opportunities, don't get me wrong. But what I'm trying to say is it is not easy. And this is a very important point people sometimes skip. They'll tell you digital transformation, you have to do it. There are ways to do it. We have money for you. Let's go on board. They forget and neglect to mention that it is tough, it is difficult, even for commercial profit-making companies. Okay, and this is an important mindset change from day one. You have to set the expectation. It is not easy. It is doable. It's not easy. Then you go on and do it, as opposed to being dejected. So remember this slide. I'm going to repeat that. And this time around, I'll let you to focus on different wordings within the slide. What Smart Nation Singapore really wants you to do before you start using technology. The intention is for you to harness and transform how you work. and then use the technology, not use technology upfront. And this is a very important point, which I'll articulate later on what digital transformation really is. Okay, digital transformation for now, if you were to keep it the point, is not about technology. That's the number one mistake a lot of people in the organization make when they think about digital technology. I'm going to buy more computers, networks, etc., and then somehow magically my problems is going to go away. No, digital transformation is not about technology. Technology is actually the easiest part in the grand scheme of things. So with that, I'd like to set some terminologies to correct some views, get everybody on the same page. So first thing first, when we talk about digital transformation, there are two very common keywords that comes up, and they are very often they are mistaken in terms of what they mean. First is digitization. The second is digitalization. They are not the same. Okay, they sound similar. They're not the same. In digitization, it is defined as the process of changing from analog to digital form. So you computerize it. You use an electronic version. In digitalization, you actually improve the way you do your work. You may even change the way you do your work using technology. Now, there's a clear differences. One is just replacing the form and medium. One is actually using it and transforming how you work, processes, even strategy, etc., etc. So this, under digitizations, they are really tools that you can buy. Okay, things that you can buy, chances are tools. Digitize. Digitalization involves a lot of strategy and operations. So how you want to change the way you do things, then you think about how you use technology. Now, there is no digitalization without digitization. So you can't change the way you do things using technology without technology, but they are not the same. They are different terms. And why is this important point to emphasize? Because when you go and talk to consultants, you get some grunt. You talk to consultants, and they may be confused about the terms. You'll be surprised. And then you end up spending whatever money you got to digitize stuff, as opposed to moving forwards and improving how you work. So that's not the intended outcome. But digitization. So what does it really entails? I talk about new application, latest computers, equipment, sensor, robots, and you see this a lot of times in literature. People trying to sell you stuff in other talks. I call this the basket of digital distraction. Stop focusing on the technology. Seriously, they are the easiest aspect in the grand scheme of things. The only barriers towards technology is money. Okay, you need to fix, your strategy, operations, fine tune them before you go on and buy the relevant tech stuff. So what does digital transformation entails then? I talk about some digitization being tools, digitalization being strategy and operations. Well, so what is digital transformation? Yes, it's about enabling resource maximization, maintaining quality while being effective and efficient, as well as the human touch. It's really about creating opportunities for us to focus more on the value and quality, removing redundancy from the processes. But that doesn't really articulate. And I realized that when I try to explain that way, people sometimes miss the point. So I'm going to use a graphical representation. I'm sure all of you have seen this picture before. It's a very common example used for equality, explain equality. So you have here a bunch of kids trying to watch baseball, and they're blocked by a fence. And they're all given little crate boxes to step on, so everybody gets the same amount of resources. If you approach digital transformation this way, you're only focusing on the process aspects of things. Everybody gets the tech, okay, the digital part. Everybody gets the same. So fair, everybody gets it. This is a very function-centered approach where you look at functions and processes. The next diagram, you actually have a reallocation of resources. Okay, it says, okay, so some other departments need this more, you reallocate them. This is the human-centered aspects, or we call it the workflow aspect. So you look at how individual people or departments require resources differently, and you adjust it accordingly. What we want to address, what we want to achieve in digital transformation is a slightly different aspect. We're trying to go for the system level aspects of things, where we try to remove the barrier towards digital transformation. And that is what we are truly aiming for. Okay, so this is the difference between the three aspects, whether you are looking at things from a digitization, digitalization. So digitalization in this case, they are improving, yes, but silo-based, not as an organization. And then you have digital transformation where it truly changes and remove barriers, underlying nuances to help you achieve the intended outcome. Okay, this is the difference between digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. Can look similar when you are not careful, but it is important that we differentiate them, because in your journey you could be at different stage. So it's not a case where you say, hey, I'm just doing process and function. I'm not at the system level yet. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. We are all at different stages, but it's important to know that what it truly is, and you try to move on to that. Okay. So I'm going to touch a little bit on digital transformation planning. How would you go about doing digital transformation? So it's okay, if anything, you leave this webinar, as Adam says, it's about transforming how you operate, sometimes pivoting for your original work goals. There are many ways to skin the cat, right? So pivoting as well. And it says, hey, we have to aim towards that level. But how do we do that? So, let's roughly, very quickly, go through this part as well. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of people, when they talk about digital transformation, they tell you, yes, there's this XYZ processes you're going to do, use XYZ tools, frameworks, and then you get there. But the number one problem I've seen so far, be it in the commercial world or in the social sector, is to underplay the complexity. And this is really bad in terms of change management, because people will go in not knowing what to expect. So please do understand that most digital transformation projects fail due to bad planning, bad understanding. Now, they're not easy, but they can be done. Okay, they can be done. Reason why? Most common scenarios, they actually try to solve symptoms as opposed to root causes. So there'll be reason why an organization is ineffective. And it could be symptoms of ineffectiveness. So what is really causing it? You don't really take a pause to fix your policies, to fix your culture. Straight away, you say digitization, digital transformation. I got a grant, I'm going to buy technology. That is a very surefire way to actually not end up transforming your organization. Okay, so what do you need to do? You really need to find someone who knows what they're doing. I cannot emphasize this more enough. Every time I see someone says, who is leading your digital transformation exercise, surprising, a lot of times it says technical guys, IT guys, because it's digital, right? And I say, so you're going to get the tech guys to transform how you raise money, how you do outreach to your donors, volunteers? It doesn't make sense. The tech guys, they will most probably do their job very well on the technical level. But as I mentioned earlier on, digital transformation is really strategy and operations. Figure that part out, then go and buy the technology. So really be very clear and get someone who knows what they're doing. The more experienced they are, the better. And there's actually many ways to transform an organization. You have to be clear on what you want, or else it's very difficult to deliver results, because whatever they give to you, you're not sure whether it's something that you want. But very important, get someone who knows what they're doing. Okay, understand what digital transformation is. Then this goes back to the earlier point when I articulated the differences between digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. It's really not about adopting digital buzzwords. This is merely digitization. And it's not just adopting technologies to make you better at what you do at a silo basis. You must aim for it from an organizational basis. Because if you flip your role around, if you're a donor today, you come to the organization, or you're recipient of, you're the beneficiary of your organization, they don't really care if you have one awesome department. They look at you as an organization, and it is the entire process and experience that counts. It can't be, you know, I interacted with 5 departments. One of them was really awesome, used a lot of tech. The rest of it, same. It's actually a hassle to the end user, okay? Your intended recipient. Okay, it's really trying to look at the whole system level change. Okay, this is real digital transformation. I mentioned before, know where you want to go, else everywhere is the wrong direction. So that's the key point. And so over at ISS, we do engage non-profits, SSAs, from time to time, sometimes for pro bono projects. And and I'll share with you my personal experience. There are times where I tell folks who are working in SSAs, I say, come meet me for coffee. I will buy you the coffee. You don't even have to buy me coffee. All I need is your time. Sit down, and you can ask questions, and I will try to find ways to answer them and help you in your digital transformation journey. They don't even know what questions to ask. And that's a bit sad because this is free services. Imagine you go and take grants, which you only have one time. You get a grant, and then you unfortunately spend it on something that's easily solvable or just tech, new computers, new networks. That's really a waste, okay? So, but before that, the reason why people are buying new computer, new techs, or not sure what to ask is because at the end of the day, they don't know what they want. So also, you know, in the grand scheme of things in your organization, even the whole cultural landscape, tech landscape, political landscape, what is the direction that your organization wants to go? And what is it that you want to do? So first thing first, you must that. So with that in mind, then you have to start discovering what's going on. This is visions, why, your insights, also your design level. So discover, design, initiate, refine. Under design, it could be your leadership, strategy, roadmaps, various types of roadmap, organizational roadmap, tech roadmap, etc. Then you initiate. This is where I talk about the culture. Okay, everybody has to be all hands on deck, especially in the social sector. Manpower is never enough. So how do you get everybody to sing the same tune and be there wanting to do that? Of course, along the way, you refine your processes, your plans, and this is important. So for those who are familiar with project management, none of the projects you deliver, your outcomes is the same as your intended plans. They always change. This is actually very normal. Okay, so be able to actually have the mindset to pivot, to change, and adapt accordingly. Because when you embark on a project, there are a lot of things you don't know. A lot of things that you don't know that you don't know. That's its life, okay? And as you move along, you find that, hey, you know, there's something new factor, change in circumstances, external landscape, etc., and you change accordingly. That is fine. So if I were to actually simplify this very high-level framework, you must know your future state, where you want to go. You must understand your current state, so you actually have a contrast, and you know exactly where, or rather roughly where, which areas you have to look into. And these are the in-betweens. And it's very important, don't get stressed up trying to sort all the details before you start the journey. This is the number one problem I have a lot of times when I work with organization. They want a perfect plan from day one before they start. I said there's no such thing. Don't set yourself up for failure. Don't be so fixated. Know where you're going, know where you are. We'll figure out along the way, okay? So this is where I need to go back to this slide, as I mentioned earlier, I showed earlier on. There are opportunities, important areas that we can utilize technology to help us in our digital transformation journey. And I highlighted them. There are processes, human-centered aspect. If you correlate back to the example I used earlier on, data, of course, is important because these days you have to be data-driven. You can't be rough gauge or feeling because your donors are also data savvy. Okay, you have to actually present facts. But with facts, knowing that what's going on in your organization, you can then go on to improve your processes, which is the function aspects of things. You can go on to improve the human-centered aspects of things, which is your workflow. And then another area is you must have an agile mindset, which is not being fixated on the intended outcomes that you set from day one, but you move accordingly. to the changes that corresponds, and then you make change management techniques as well. These are the main things you have to look and take into consideration. And at this point in time, I'd like to highlight again, you do not see me talking about technology. That is the easiest bit of the puzzle. You just find money, you can buy all the technology you want. But without all this in place, all the technology that you get is going to be irrelevant. Okay, so this is something I need to really emphasize throughout. But don't get me wrong, if you don't have the technology, all these things are most probably still useful, but you will not be able to go on to the next stage. But very important to understand the differences. So with that in mind, in this Community Matters series that we have partnered with NVPC, we have actually come up with a series of talk. So today we're actually at here, 25th of February, where we're going to talk about digital transformation. You realize that it take a long time to articulate the grand scheme of things, because that will set the pace for the rest of the topics that's going to come up for the subsequent months. So the next one will be the power of data, which is really about analytics. And you don't get put off by the word analytics. It is not as scary as you thought. If you have done secondary school math, you can do analytics. You actually have learned it before, just never use it, and you're using a different term. And then we have a webinar in June on process innovation, August in human-centered services, and October, there will be one that is on agility and change leadership. These are the webinar series. We also have a series of innovation clinics, corresponding innovation clinics. And you can see that these are the other months where we don't have a webinar. So February, March, April, May, all the way to November. So what is this innovation clinic about? I'd like to articulate a little bit more so that to encourage all of you to attend the entire series of things. So the webinars, as today, is to raise awareness, burst some of the myths, cover core concepts, to bring participants on the same page, so we can actually have a proper conversation before you go on and enjoy all the grants. Ideally, you know what you're doing, rough idea. You don't have to be an expert, but you need to actually have that conversation. So, you can actually plan things properly, clearer idea. Not only externally, also internally. And again, I emphasize this is a very important first step towards your organization's digital transformation. So these are the webinar series that I flashed earlier on. Every month we have something. And the innovation clinics, they are actually an ideation co-creating coaching session to supplement the webinars that we have delivered. And this is to deepen and potentially even kickstart your digital transformation journey. So a few things to highlight is that for each of the relevant clinics, innovation clinics, we only touch on the topic that the previous webinar has touched on. So each innovation clinic will be different with a very focus on one topic. And so the reason is being that we will try to help organizations with different needs. So some of the organization, they are starting on the digital transformation journey. They may want to know more about digital transformation, so they can apply to attend those clinics. Some of them have been through that journey already. They think that they want to do more about analytics, or they want to do more about human-centered innovation. They will go for those clinics. So this is the way the webinars and clinics are structured. Now, there's a few other important aspects I need to highlight. Clinics are optional. You don't have to attend them if you don't want to, but I do encourage everyone to attend all the webinars. The webinars are also recorded, so to share it with your colleagues who are unable to attend at the stipulated time. Another thing about the innovation clinics is it is not guaranteed. So you must understand that me and my colleagues over at NUS-ISS, we can't potentially take on the entire social sector in Singapore through these clinics. So we actually have to filter, if you will. So towards the end of this presentation, there's actually a survey form with inviting all of you to submit potential issues you want us to help you with, and then our team will go through that, and we'll select those we think we can help. Sometimes there are issues where we can't help. We have to be honest about that. So those that we can, we'll try to help. So that's for the innovation clinics. So more details available in this post webinar survey later. Of course, the requirements, as I mentioned, you must have attended the webinar, or else it'll be not fair to those who have. And you have to actually answer the some of the questions to help us filter in the survey later. I'm not done with the webinar yet. So with that, the digital transformation framework, there are also areas where organizations should avoid or be careful of, pitfalls to avoid. As I mentioned earlier on, don't focus on the technology. You see me repeating certain stuff repeatedly because these are really some of the key areas organization gets into trouble with. So technology really is the easiest part, okay? It's only a tool. Another area, especially for bigger organization, is working in silos. Sometimes it's not deliberate, but because organizations are big, then you tend to focus on pilots, silo-based approach. That's really digitalization. Again, remember you flip the angle around your intended recipient. They look at your organization on the whole, not just one department, not just one section. It is very important. And not investing in culture and communication, very common mistake as well. This is really what drives true digital innovation. Don't go for the mindset is I'm just going to implement this without engaging my ground staff, the people who's going to use that solution. I'm sure that if I built it, they will use it. No, it doesn't work that way. And people do vote with their feet. If it's a horrible place because of the internal processes, they will leave the organization. It's happened before, it will happen again. Okay. Some of the best practices I would like to share, just very high level. There is no cookie cutter solution. It may sound obvious, but a lot of times I've seen organizations try to buy commercial off-the-shelf products, and then they have their own list of requirements, right? They may have done an internal, they may have done a request for information, RFI, and then they put a request for proposal, RFP, and they say, these are all my requirements, 10 of them. And then when they come to evaluate the solutions, most of them meet 8 out of 10 of the requirements, some lesser, and they meet various different parts. And then it says, hey, I don't have the perfect solution, so I'm going to start nitpicking. Don't do that. There's no perfect solution. You just have to accept that and choose whatever is relevant for you and take into consideration the area you have to customize. You'll be surprised how much effort, time, and money organization put into trying to find the perfect solution, arguing with the vendors that they must customize to the perfection. And end up, they may be able to do it. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Okay, so chances are there are always alternative ways to do things. Think of the processes and the workflow aspects of things. Okay. Fix the problem, not the symptom. I mentioned this before. I wish I had more time to give you more concrete examples, but if you correlate it back to your normal daily setting, I'm sure you'll be able to find from your experiences that this happens fairly regular basis. And most importantly, there's no utopia. Do not beat yourself up. Do not beat up other people. Do not beat them up. If you do not get a perfect outcome or solution, it just simply doesn't exist. Okay. So with that, I've come to the end of my presentation. But before I end off, I would actually like to invite organizations here who are dealing with the health or social care aspects as your intended beneficiaries or a social impact to join a community that we have set up. Those who are not from the health and social care industry, you're welcome to join us as well. A lot of the sharings within this community is actually relevant. It's just that for this particular community, there's a specific focus for health and social care. So the website is down there and there's a QR code. I invite all of you who are interested to join the community, and you get regular access to webinars, coaching sessions, outreach with yourself if you're interested in, or the recordings of the various webinars, resources that's contributed by our pool of volunteers. And lastly, I invite you to actually fill in the feedback survey. This is also where, if you would like to attend the innovation clinic for this topic, digital transformation, on the 16th of March, please fill in the relevant terms and describe the problem that you would like us to solve. And then our team will actually look at it and see how we can help you. So my colleague Yap Ming has also posted the link in the chat group for all of you to actually click on that. Yeah. So as mentioned, this webinar is recorded. It will be made available, not immediately because it takes some time to process it, but it will be made available to all of you to be shared with your colleagues once ready. So I invite all of you to fill in the survey form. And again, the link is in the chat group. So while participants are filling in the form, I'd like to take the opportunity to invite questions from the floor. If you guys have any questions that I may be able to answer right now, I would like to do so. Please don't be shy. I'll just assume that you guys are busy filling in the form, so you guys have no question verbally, and you're not ignoring me, right? Nevertheless, the email address is also provided, I believe, earlier on. If not, you can just Google for me, drop me a note, or contact us. I think there's through the form, and we'll be more than happy to see how we can be of assistance to you and your organization. With that, I've come to the end of my presentation. So if you guys have no question, then we'll end the session. So last chance, no? Okay then, I thank you everyone for your time, and I look forward to seeing all of you and your colleagues at the next webinar. Thank you.